Alright, so today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing rational numbers. And remember that a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. So let's say we have the number 3 and 2500ths times 1 and 1/5. So when you're looking at these, you need to either have all decimals or all fractions. So you need to look at this and decide which one's easier to convert. Is it easier to convert the 3 and 2500ths to a fraction, or is it easier to convert the 1 and 1/5 to a decimal? In this one, I personally think it's easy either way, so I'm going to show you both ways, just so you can see which one you prefer. So 3 and 2500ths is like a quarter, so that'd be 3 and 1/4. Times 1 and 1/5. Make those improper fractions. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13 over 4. Times 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 is 6 over 5. I can reduce the 4 and 6 by 2. 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now I can multiply. 3 times 13 is 39. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 goes into 39 3 times with 9 left over. So my answer is 3 and 9/10. If I wanted to go the other way and do this with decimals, we'd have 3 and 2500ths times 1 and 1/5. 1 and 1/5, turning that into tenths, it would be 1 and 2/10. So it would be 1 and 2/10 as a decimal. Now I can multiply. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry my 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 3 times 2 is 6. Put my 0 placeholder. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. Add this up. 0, 0 makes 0. 5 plus 5 is 10. 1 plus 6 is 7. Plus 2 is 9. And bring down that 3. Now I have 1, 2, 3 digits behind the decimal in my problem. So I have 1, 2, 3 digits behind my decimal in my answer. So I get an answer of 3 and 9/10. So I got the same answer either way. Now sometimes you get problems like this, 2 and 1700ths times 1 1/2, where it's clearly easier to go either decimals or fractions. So in this case, it's much easier to turn 1/2 into a decimal than it is 1700ths into a fraction. So, make this a decimal. 2 and 1700ths times 1 1/2 is 1 and 5/10. And start multiplying. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. 5 times 2 is 10. 0 placeholder. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 5 plus 0 is 5. 8 plus 7 is 15. 1 plus 1 is 2. And 1 plus 2 is 3. Now I have 1, 2, 3 digits behind the decimal in my problem. So I have 1, 2, 3 digits behind the decimal in my answer. So I have 3 and 255 thousandths as my answer. Alright, so let's talk about some division. So we have 3 and 1/8 divided by 2 and 2/10. And when looking at this, I think it's much easier to turn 2 and 2/10 into a fraction than it is to turn 3 and 1/8 into a decimal. So we're going to do that. So we have 3 and 1/8 divided by 2 and 2/10. And 2 and 2/10 can reduce to 1/5. So now make these improper fractions. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25, so we have 25/8. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11/5. Remember, when dividing fractions, we're going to keep, change, flip. So I have 25/8 times 5 over 11. There's nothing I can reduce here, so we're just going to multiply. 25 times 5 is 125. 8 times 11 is 88. And 88 will go into 125 once. with 37 left over. So I have 1 and 37 over 88. Alright, so let's look at one with decimals. So 2 and 7/10 divided by 2 1/4. It's easy to convert 2 1/4 to a decimal. Think of money, 1/4 of a dollar is 25 cents, so that would be 25 hundredths. So I have 2 and 7/10 divided by 2 and 25 hundredths. Remember, you have to make that outside number into a whole number, so I'm going to move that decimal twice. Do the same thing on the inside and add my 0 placeholder. Now 225 will go into 271 time. Bring up that decimal. And then subtract. And 70 minus 25 is 45. Add a 0, bring it down. 225 will go into 450 twice, which is 450. So we get an answer of 1 and 2/10.